Hey everyone, welcome to the Huddle brought to you by Play USA. My name's Nicole here with
Ian St. Clair.
and today we're going to be talking about that NFL wild card weekend. A lot of really bad matchups and some good ones, some interesting ones, some that came down to the final few seconds. And we're going to be covering what's going to happen next in the NFL playoffs. How was the wild card weekend for you? Did you enjoy what you saw on your TV screen?
It was labeled as super wild card weekend, and I would
Yes.
say it was super dull and boring weekend because of the 6 games we had, only 2 were somewhat interesting. And the one on Sunday in the afternoon game that we'll talk about here in a little bit was only interesting because of horrible clock management. But I mean, obviously the NFL got what it wanted, huge ratings, 2 extra games to get advertising revenue. And that's why they added the 7th team in the playoffs for each conference. So the NFL got what it wanted, but people watched it. I mean, it's the NFL, so that's what it is. And they bet on it. So in that sense, I mean, it was the playoffs, but it wasn't exactly super wild card weekend.
I mean, listen, I was guilty of it too. I mean, I watched way more of the Eagles getting destroyed than I needed to. I watched way more of the Patriots getting destroyed than I needed to. And then obviously I'm a glutton for punishment. So I watched my Steelers get destroyed all the way until Ben's final snap. But I'll get into it for worst of the week. The thing with the Steelers for me, and I'm going to talk about this now because it's actually not my worst of the week. I expected us to lose. Everyone expected us to lose. What I was upset about, we talked about this last week. Don't go out on a press conference and say you're going to mix things up. You're going to try new stuff. You're going to give the Chiefs looks that they haven't seen before, and then go out there and run the exact same play calling that you've ran the entire regular season. Like, just don't lie to us. If you're going to just play mediocre football, I mean, props to the defense for keeping it such a low scoring game, especially through that first quarter. I don't think anyone thought the score was going to be what it was at the end of the first quarter, But don't just do the same crap that you've been doing all season and then have a press conference and make it seem like you're out there, going to be running trick plays. It's like, it was so boring. It was the same Steelers we've seen all season.
And in terms of the other game, I joked on Twitter where the Bills were just finally, they were exercising a lot of demons on Saturday night against the Patriots. And I joked, I sent out a tweet from the new Star Wars movie, Han Solo's son, where he's like, more. And that's Bills Mafia as the Bills were rolling up and down the field, scoring touchdowns. I mean, in that sense, it was fun for Bills Mafia. And how about seeing Ryan Fitzpatrick, the current quarterback for the Washington football team, in Orchard Park without his shirt on in that freezing weather, rooting on the Bills.
I was going to say, yeah, that was another one. I actually really did not expect the Patriots to play as poorly as they did, but that was just a total blowout. And then again, the Eagles just got trampled on as well. So really not so super of a wild card weekend, but without further ado, let's just take it into worst of the week. I'll get us kicked off. We kind of already alluded to this in the little intro that we gave, but yeah, Steelers are not going to be my worst of the week, and that's because it was expected of them to be horrible, and they were exactly what they, said they were going to be. So whatever, we expected that. This honor is going to be saved for the Dallas Cowboys and their final drive of the game. My goodness, I did not know what I was watching on the screen. And let's just be honest, that entire fourth quarter was plagued by just stupid penalties. I mean, especially for the 49ers, who really should have never even given the ball back to the Dallas Cowboys. But nevertheless, the Cowboys got the ball back. They had some time to drive down the field and try to tie it up, or actually win the game because they were down by 6. So if they would have gotten a touchdown, they would have won. So they're in their opponent's territory. They have 14 seconds left on the clock and they have 0 timeouts. So what do you think they're going to do? They're either going to chuck it to the end zone or try to get into the try to get it out of bounds and pick up a few more yards. No, not the Cowboys. What do they do, Ian?
They run a draw.
They run a draw right down the center of the field. Dak runs for what most people think should have been about 10 yards. But instead of going 10 yards, going down and trying to get the ball set with a few more seconds, he goes for 17 yards and eats away those extra few seconds on the clock. So by the time Dak hands the ball to the center, they get it set. The referee still has to come touch the ball before it can be set. By the time the referee touches the ball, they run out of time and the 49ers win the game. And that has got to be some of the worst time management I've ever seen in my life.
The worst. I mean, not just time management, but game management. You're in the opponent's side of the field. You have 14 seconds left. You run a draw? I mean, I get it. 31 coaches in the NFL are horrible at clock and game management. The only one who has any idea what he's doing is Bill Belichick. The other 31 have no clue what they're doing. And I don't understand it. It's not that difficult. I've never coached football in my life. I've watched football for close to 40 years of my life, and I'm 40 years old. What in the hell was Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore doing? You either, as you said, take 2 shots at the end zone. Dak has the arm to throw it 45 yards into the end zone. At the very least, you throw it to the sideline because at least you can get a little bit more yardage. But you have 14 seconds left. Andy Reid was watching that saying, what is Mike McCarthy doing? And Andy Reid is one of the worst clock and game management coaches in the National Football League. Vic Fangio was watching that going, wow, that's pretty bad. I mean, and it's to get even worse. It's like Mike McCarthy was watching Kyle Shanahan. He's like, here, hold my beer. I'll be worse than you in terms of clock game management at the end of this fourth quarter. It's just, I don't understand it. I do not. And I've said this and I've thought to myself about it. NFL coaches overthink it, whether it's with these elaborate play calls that they do where they do like 3 throwbacks to the receiver to the quarterback and then they throw it down the field. We saw it with Cliff Kingsbury in the first quarter on Sunday, or I guess it'd be Monday night. They overthink it. They try to get too cute. It's really not that difficult. And the line that I come back to is from Bull Durham from the 80s, the great baseball movie with Kevin Costner, where he tells his manager, you got to scare them. So they gather all the players into the shower. And if you haven't seen it, he says, baseball is a simple game. You throw the ball, you hit the ball, you catch the ball. Football is no different. It's not that difficult at the end of the game to manage it.
Yeah, if you have 34 seconds left, sure, run the draw. I mean, he picked up 17 yards. It got him into good field position, but good field position doesn't get you anything if you don't have time left on the clock to make another play. So my whole thing is, and this is going to, eventually go into my take it to Twitter, but we still have to get through your worst of the week. But the people that were blaming the ref for not running fast enough, which by the way, I've watched this play and we have it here for you. So go ahead and take a look.
San Francisco to get to the quarterback here. Prescott takes off running the football. Whoa, I don't think this is going to work out.
It will. They'll be able to clock this. They were planned for it. It's down. Oh my gosh.
Oh, the official gets in the way. The game's over.
Gosh.
The game is over.
Oh, he did.
Oh, they're going to look at this.
It's going to be over because the umpire has to touch the ball. Of course, that's ridiculous for a game to end like that, Jim. Wow, I am livid if I'm a Cowboy fan and if I'm a Niners fan.
That's the end of the game. The game is over. The game is over and San Francisco.
The ref was maybe half a second behind the football. So do not blame the ref for your teams. And I'm sure it was like, it's all Dallas Cowboy fans. I'm like, I get it. You're sad that your team lost, but do not blame the ref for your team just making a stupid call on the last play of the game, which by the way, honorable mention for maybe worst of the week or take it to Twitter is, and Stephen A. Smith did this, but just the camera crew zooming in on the Dallas Cowboy fans at the end of that. And then just the different display of emotions and the tears. I mean, one guy was, he was bawling.
Yeah.
So I will have to say, as somebody who hasn't loved the Cowboys for most of my life, I got a little bit of a chuckle out of it. Not as much as Stephen A. Smith did. He had like an evil genius laugh. He absolutely loves it, but good for the camera crew for getting us those shots. Sorry, Dallas Cowboys fans.
Well, and I will say, for the people blaming the umpire, blame the quarterback who didn't hand the ball to the umpire for knowing that the umpire has to touch the ball before it's snapped.
Yeah, Dak handed it to a center. Can't do anything for you.
Exactly. The center can't snap it until the umpire sets it. So blame Dak Prescott for not knowing it. And if you listen to Mike McCarthy, apparently they practice this. I would hate to see what actually practicing it looks like, because
Mike McCarthy has stood by his decision and alluded to the fact that Dak was probably only supposed to run for 10 yards because he said he would call that again in the same circumstances, but maybe a 10-yard instead of a 17-yard. So it just, everyone, I don't agree with that, by the way. Like, I don't think a draw with no timeouts is the smartest play, but whatever. I'm not a head coach in the National Football League, but it was just bad time management all around. Like, Dak didn't seem to really know what he was doing or what the time was. Again, the center's trying to get the ref to touch the ball. The ref's trying to barrel his way through an offensive line so he can get to the other side of the ball and touch it. The ref did put in a lot of effort there. And yeah, it was just a mess. And the game was a mess when it came to pre-snap penalties. It was sloppy all over, and they ended the game sloppy.
You mentioned that. Both Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn, the coordinators for Mike McCarthy, are interviewing for head coaching jobs, and both of them interviewed for the Denver Broncos head coaching job. That wasn't exactly the greatest thing to put on your resume if you're interviewing for head coach, is just how ill prepared the Dallas Cowboys looked for that game. As you said, the pre-snap penalties, the undisciplined penalties, it was a nightmare for the Cowboys. And you mentioned the photos. The one that stands out to me is that couple holding each other. And some of the jokes on Twitter are like, oh, well, I guess this is our last time being Cowboys fans until we become Packers fans next year.
Yeah, the couples in mourning. Somebody also was in Las Vegas, and there was just a couple in tears on the floor consoling each other, I believe, at the win. And it's, listen, it's sad, but
not really.
It's not that sad. So Cowboys fans are another level. But that pretty much exhausts it for what I have. Do you have anything you want to add, or do you have a different worst of the week?
No, that pretty much takes it. At some point there has to be like a coaching 101 game and clock management class for coaches to take in the NFL. Like, okay, to get to an NFL coach, you have to be able to pass this level of clock and game management. It really isn't that difficult. And I'm not, there's no way I could coach in the National Football League. There's the intricacies, the plays, the language, all of that stuff. But when you watch it and you can see it with your own eyes, and I'm a big believer in the eye test. That's how I watch sports. It's not really analytical or numbers based. It's eye test. And if you can't do it as a coach, you can see it. And it is apparent that Mike McCarthy and that coaching staff in the Cowboys just didn't do it. And Kyle Shanahan actually got bailed out. So he should be thanking Mike McCarthy for being even worse at game and clock management.
Exactly. Yeah. Neither of them were stellar. Waiting for Bill Belichick's masterclass on time management, because this guy's so good at it that he knows rules that ends up basically taking time off the clock or putting, like, the guy's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you can call it scheming or conniving, but maybe he's just better at understanding the rules than every other coach in the NFL. But I agree with you. And now I'm going to just piggyback on this for my take it to Twitter, because it's the same game. And it's basically what happens after this horrible play, which is the Cowboys and the refs are walking into the locker room and fans start chucking bottles and food at them. And originally Dak thinks that the fans are throwing this at the players because they're upset with their performance, and he's vehemently against it. Shame on those fans. And then somebody tells him in the press room that they were actually throwing these bottles and food articles at the refs. And then he changes his stance and he says here, credit to them, credit to those fans.
For people to react that way when you're supposed to be a supporter, and be with us through thick and thin, that's tough. I think they were aiming at the referees. Yeah. They were at the referees. Credit to them then.
And to me, that's just gross. I mean, he's since come out and apologized. It doesn't seem very sincere. And you have a little bit of a joke about that, I know, coming up. But you are the leader of this team and you are the franchise quarterback. And I'm sorry that you lost, but in no way, shape, or form should you ever condone your fans being violent towards people in the league. I just think it's gross. And, you know, there have been, okay, some people think that the ref should have gotten there faster. That's, I think, ridiculous in my opinion. There have been games that have been lost on a lot worse calls than the ref not being able to barrel through your offensive line in half a second quicker. So I don't like it. I think most of the people on Twitter that were applauding him for saying that were upset Cowboys fans, but I think most people are in agreement here that it's a gross thing to come out of your franchise quarterback's mouth.
Absolutely. And Jerry Jones should come out and not accept it at all. And if they have video evidence of, they should actually look at the cameras, find the fans who are doing it, and ban them for life from ever attending another Cowboys game.
Yeah. I mean, it just ruins the experience. I mean, I've actually never seen it done at a football game, but I've been at a soccer match, actually in Allegiant Stadium here in Las Vegas, where fans are mad and pelting, you know, water bottles at people. And it ruins the whole experience for, I think, the players and the fans. And it's just gross. You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Nobody needs your used water bottle being thrown at that. Like it's nasty. It's unsanitary. And again, you're right. Like if you can't, a football game is win or lose. If you cannot accept your team potentially losing and you're going to, you know, throw things and try to hit staff members, you shouldn't be allowed at another game.
And that's the thing about sports. Losing is a part of it. If you don't go in expecting your team to lose or it even being a possibility, you're doing it wrong. Losing is a part of sports. One team is always going to lose. And the only situations that I've ever seen it is professional wrestling. And it turned into a professional wrestling incident on Sunday at AT&T Stadium. And the NFL is not professional wrestling. Professional wrestling, that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to elicit an emotional response from people, whether it's Hulk Hogan turning heel and going NWO and fans not believing it because he goes from eating his prayers and saying your vitamins to now being a heel and being for life, brother. I mean, it's just, it's different.
It's theatrics.
I mean, they're both entertainment, but the NFL is real life. Those are real people. They're not characters. They're not, for all that John Cena and Hulk Hogan, what they do in the ring is an act. They're a character. What Dak Prescott, what the players in the NFL do is real life. It is their life. And but also it's not even like they're not even throwing it at the players. Like they're throwing it at technically what you would consider, I mean, event or league staff, right? This is not a player you're throwing it at a ref. This is their, like you said, sometimes this isn't even their full-time job because they're not even paid enough to do this full time. So just don't be an idiot, be a respectful fan. Like you said, if you're only prepared to go to the stadium and pay ungodly amounts of money for those tickets just to see your team win, then you don't deserve to be a sports fan, especially like, come on, you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. Like you should have expected that they were going to lose in the playoffs. Exactly. The Cowboys haven't won anything since the mid 90s. Like, it should be expected at this point, especially with Jerry Jones. So the NFL and Jerry Jones need to take a hard stance on this. This needs to be eliminated from sports. You can say what you want, you can boo, you can do all of that. But when you start throwing things on the field, that is a bridge too far, and it cannot be accepted or condoned. And you mentioned my joke. The apology from Dak Prescott was less than insincere, and it immediately made me think of Dwight K. Schrute from The Office. And we'll play it right now.
So, as a disciplinary measure, he is going to have to issue a formal apology. Dwight, have you prepared your statement of regret?
I have.
Let's hear it.
I state my regret.
You couldn't have memorized that?
I could not, because I do not feel it. Okay.
Yeah, this is my statement of regret, because it's hard to walk it back when you've said, the thing that gets me is the way that he turned, right? So it was, they were throwing stuff at the players. Well, that is just not acceptable. At the refs. Oh, good for them. Like, you can't have it both ways, right? Throwing things and, trying to hit somebody with something in your hand is unacceptable no matter who it's getting tossed at. So yeah, he needs to do better. I agree. I think Jerry Jones and the Cowboys organization does need to put out a statement that just says, we do not condone this behavior, just take a stance on it. And especially from a PR standpoint, after your quarterback says that, and it was all over Twitter. I mean, the second he said it, that was all of the headlines. Dak agrees with fans throwing stuff at refs. I mean, you couldn't miss it. And honestly, when I first read it to some of the people that I was watching the game with, they thought it was an Onion article. And they were like, well, make sure it's from a reputable source. And so, by the time you click on your 5th, 6th, 7th source, you start to realize, like, oh my God, he actually said it. And I think that was the crazy thing, was it was shocking to a lot of, people. A lot of people thought it was fake at first, but it wasn't fake. And so glad he apologized, but it could have been a little bit more sincere. But your take it to Twitter is much more uplifting, much more fun to talk about. So why don't we get into that?
Let's just watch the video, because everyone knows the Super Bowl halftime show in LA is going to be Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, Kendrick Lamar, Mary J. Blige, and Eminem. It is going to be epic. And after you watch the video that the NFL tweeted of the preview of the 5 artists getting ready for the halftime show, as you said, it's going to get you hyped.
It is definitely a good hype video. The lineup is sick. Don't get me wrong. What I am hoping for, though, is that the NFL handles the transitions, and like sometimes they force these artists to do mashups because they only have so much limited time to get 5 artists in, and sometimes it's a jumbled mess on stage. So I'm really hoping that it's, clear, and they give each artist ample amount of time. Like, don't bring Mary J. Blige on to sing, backup vocals for one of the songs that the other artist is doing. Like, they've done that before, and it upsets me. Don't say Mary J. Blige or, Eminem or Snoop Dogg is part of the show, and then they only get a 5-second little backup blip. No, that's not a performer. That's don't mislead me. So I'm hoping that everyone gets their fair share of time.
And that's my hope. Because you typically get around 25 minutes. So with 5 artists, that would be 5 songs, because they're about 5 minutes in length. That's my hope, because all of these artists are so good, they could stand alone by themselves. But when you get them together, and I think that's the thing that's going to make this key, is they all work so well together, and they respect each other and like each other's music. I think this is going to be an epic halftime show. There have been a few that have been just really, Prince at the Super Bowl in Miami when he was playing in the pouring rain. You have Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Super Bowl 50, you had Coldplay, and then you had now Beyonce. And
yes.
Then that was a great Super Bowl halftime show as well. But this one, I think, has the potential to be the best. and with such great performers and performers who really like and respect and care for each other, I think it's going to make that even better. And who have performed together. I mean, Snoop, Dre, and Eminem have performed together for over 20 years. So this isn't going to be anything new. And then you throw in Mary J. Blige and Kendrick Lamar. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I am definitely excited for it. I loved The Weeknd. I didn't love his performance, but I also felt bad because I knew there were a lot of restrictions, and he ended up, I believe, coming out and saying he had to fund some of the, audio, visual, and graphic stuff on his own to get it up to par with what he thought a Super Bowl performance should be. But unfortunately, without the fans and the limitations of really where he could go, I feel on the field, it wasn't the most exciting performance. I think people are excited for this one and they're hyped. And you've even done a story on Play Colorado that talks about, you kind of have guessed the set list.
We Ken Pomponio, who's the new managing editor at playcolorado.com, and I, a couple of weeks ago, did a prediction piece on what we think the song order is going to be. And that means the songs performed by each artist and the order in which they do it. And we got a little bit of, if you watch the whole video, the hype video from the NFL, we obviously didn't play the whole thing, but if you watch it, you start to get a sense of the songs that they're going to play. We didn't get that with Eminem. And by the way, if you watch that video, listen to Eminem rap and how fast and succinctly he says what he is saying. It is unfreaking believable how good Eminem is. Like I've heard Eminem, I've listened to him for over 20 years. He still does things that blow me away. That's one of them in that video, just how fast he can get things out of his mouth and the writing that he does. It's crazy. But we got a sense of the song list. Mine, obviously, California Love is going to be a song that is performed. I think it's going to be at the end. Ken thought it was going to be at the beginning. I think you go with that song at the end of your set list when you have all of them on, and then you do the hologram of Tupac, or as I joked with you, the real Tupac comes out, since some still think he's alive.
He's alive. Yeah, exactly. And it makes sense, like you said, obvious, but for people that don't know why it's obvious, because the Super Bowl will be held at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles this year. So it is the hometown crowd.
Yes, absolutely. So my song list is the next episode. That's with Snoop and Dr. Dre. It was on the 2000 re-release of The Chronic. So that song, and I love the opening. You hear it, you instantaneously know who it is,
what that song is,
and the song is, and it gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. I have it followed by Humble. I think it's a good transition to go from the next episode to Humble, which is Kendrick Lamar's probably biggest song. That leads into Family Affair by Mary J. Blige. I think that'll be the third song performed. And the thing that I did with my list is I went with the way that they can transition to each artist and give them their own. I think those three songs work. If Eminem has to do Lose Yourself, right? I mean, that has to be the song that he does. I mean, that's what he's known. He won an Academy Award for this song. So I think that'll be the fourth song. And then fifth, California Love.
And I mean, if that is the set list, what a banger Super Bowl performance. I mean, this is a millennial's dream halftime show. But I still think the Gen Zers are going to be able to appreciate these. I mean, I feel like these are songs that have stood the test of time. And, like you said, some of them are 20 years old, but I think, Gen Z still knows California Love. So, yeah, I'm excited for it. I hope that the halftime show does them justice, gives them enough time. I think it has the potential to be so fun. And one of the things I feel like we'd be remiss if we did not talk about is that you are probably going to see a lot of networks talking about betting on the halftime show. And you're going to see terms thrown out there like legal odds, or, bet on the length of the halftime show, or bet on the first song, or bet on the last song. And while Ian has predicted it, you'll see that he did not say you can bet on it. And that is because as of right now, that is not a legal betting option at regulated online sportsbooks. So when you do see these odds for first song or last song or first performer, those are odds from offshore sportsbooks. And to our knowledge, no legal online or, retail jurisdiction has gotten the go ahead to allow these markets for wagering. So again, if you're seeing odds, they are offshore odds for betting on the Super Bowl halftime show.
And one last thing before we move on from this. You mentioned the newer songs. Ken actually went old school with one of his songs.
Old school.
He predicted that the second song, his song list was, we'll start with California Love. Then he went with Chronic. Like, this is mid 90s. This was what put obviously solo wise, he went with Nothing But a G Thing as his second song. And then he went Family Affair, Humble, Lose Yourself.
Okay. So some are the same, a little bit. Dre's stuff is a little bit older, but I like it. I think you're right. Family. Trying to think if Mary J. Blige does anything other than Family Affair. What's the just fine. Maybe that one, but I think it's still Family Affair.
Yeah. And I obviously, because in the Hype video, Kendrick Lamar does Humble too. And I think that's going to be the song.
Oh, it has to be Humble. That was like one of, yeah, I would say Humble. It's like it's the biggest song over the last few years for him. So I agree. I like those picks and I'll be excited if those were those picks. All right. Should we take it to promo party?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I'm going to talk about FanDuel because I don't think we touched on that one last week. And you and I love this promotion because it is cold hard cash. They're
real money,
not free bets, real money. So right now it is a bet $5, win $150 cash. If you bet on any team to win their playoff matchup and that bet wins. So here's how it works. So the max bet is $5 and the offer runs through January 30th. So you sign up for FanDuel. We have links for you to sign up for FanDuel all over our sites. Ian runs Play Colorado. He runs playny.com. I work for thelines.com. We all have links, playusa.com. Visit any of those sites. Click on the link to register for a new FanDuel account. Sign up, make your first deposit, and then make your first real money wager on the site on any team to win their playoff matchup. And if they do, you're going to get $150 in cash within 72 hours of your bet being graded as a win. So this one, a little bit higher stakes because your wager actually has to win. So some of the other ones that we've seen, either a team just has to score a touchdown or, a point needs to be scored in the game. This one, your money line wager actually has to win, and then you'll get that $150 in cash. But cash is king.
Especially with FanDuel. I mean, I think other books are going to come on board with this and start doing it because they're going to have to keep up. I mean, you can offer free bets. I mean, we talked about the DraftKings offer last week, and that's still going, where it's up to $280 in free bets, which is insane to me. It's like, why did I? Anyway, bet $5, win $280. Like, it's just going to keep going up. Yes, but the one I'm going to go with is BetMGM, where it really is. This is as free money as it gets. Bet $10, win $200 if any team in the playoffs scores a touchdown. That's it.
It's great.
Not to win, not anything. You bet $10, and if any team scores a touchdown, you get $200 in free bets.
And like you said, so with the FanDuel one, you're getting cash, but it's a little bit higher stakes. This one, a little bit lower stakes, right? I mean, the chance of a team this far into the playoffs not scoring a touchdown, any of them, is basically impossible. So if you're new to BetMGM, this is also a very good offer. And we've talked about the DraftKings one last week, also another great offer. You really do have some great opportunities right now. If you are a new user, like we said, offers that we normally see for the beginning of the football season, they're bringing in time for the Super Bowl. So don't hesitate.
The one thing with the BetMGM offer, though, is it's paid out in 2 $100 free bets. I would like it to be broken up into $25 bets so that you get to explore the app a little more. That's a huge bet to make, 2 huge bets to make with $100. At $25 would break it up a little more and give you some more flexibility and to try out the app. That's what DraftKings does with its bet $5, win 280. It's broken up into 7 $40 bets. So to me, that's better in the sense that you get to explore the app and you're not throwing all of your eggs into basically 2 baskets.
I do agree with you there, especially because they are targeting a user with a $5 bet. So if you're a user that is making $5 or $10 bets, you're likely, you might be in that $100 bet category, but you're likely staying at a 25 or under limit. And normally people that are betting higher amounts on these games are taking different offers. So I agree with you that I think 2 $100 bets are a little bit high and a little limiting, but at the same time, I guess it gives people an opportunity to make a larger bet that they weren't, might not be planning on making. But I tend to be with you there. Like the more bets you have, the more you can try out, like a same game parlay or, some bet types that you wouldn't normally make because you have a good amount of free bets in your account.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you more, it gives you more to experience the app, see how it works, find what you like to do. And I think that should be what sportsbooks do instead of limiting how much you get to explore the app.
And we'll see if these sportsbooks, we've said that the expiration dates are looking like the very end of January. So I have no doubt that there will be a fresh set just in time for the Super Bowl. So if you want to wait it out, you can always wait it out and see what these sportsbooks come out with for Super Bowl time. But that's pretty much all I have for promo party. And now it's time for prop lock and drop it. And it was a sad week for us. Man, both of our teams so high scoring and our anytime touchdown scorers just couldn't get into the end zone for us. So Jamar Chase cannot get into the end zone for me, but because I'm a glutton for punishment, I am going to go with the same bet type again. So here we go. We're going to go anytime touchdown scorer. I'm going to take Mike Evans at plus 100 on DraftKings. He's had touchdowns in 4 of the last 5 games. And I do think that it's going to be a high scoring matchup. So, I'm hoping that we get some luck with this one and he ends up being one of the guys that gets into the end zone for me.
Yeah. You mentioned Jamar Chase. I went with Stefan Diggs, and you would think the guy who would be most likely to score a touchdown would score a touchdown when the Bills dropped nearly 50 points on the Patriots. But no, not only did Stefan Diggs not get a touchdown, Josh Allen threw a fat guy touchdown. Like, really? Anyway, I'm going to go. DraftKings has some fun playoff specials, divisional specials, as they call them. Some of the ones include Derrick Henry and Joe Mixon to combine for 150 yards rushing. Jamar Chase and A.J. Brown combined for 3 touchdowns. That seems like it's a bit much since Jamar Chase didn't even get one last weekend.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, A.J. Brown, and Julio Jones each to have 50-plus receiving yards. So they're all of these. The one that I'm going to go with, which I think is most likely to happen, Cooper Kupp or Mike Evans to have 125-plus receiving yards. At DraftKings, currently it is yes plus 130. So good value, not too crazy like some of those other ones that are like plus 700. I mean, go for it. I mean, it's a good payout if it happens. It's less likely, obviously, because the odds are greater. But with this one, still good value, and it's something that's likely to happen, as you mentioned, since there's going to be a lot of offense, I think, in this game with Matt Stafford and Tom Brady. So I'm going to go with that. Cooper Kupp or Mike Evans to have 125-plus receiving yards.
I like that too, because if you look at Cooper Kupp on most of the other markets, you're not getting odds, anything like that. So I like that bet. And as always, if you are wagering this weekend, good luck with all of your bets. And if you're not, enjoy watching the football games, and we will see you next Friday.